sheer stupidity. That is the only explanation for the last week and a half or so of news regarding Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's alleged return to the UK.
It's never just straightforward. Just get on the plane, get over here. If you want to see your family, then just get on with it. If you want to go, you'll be perfectly secure in one of the royal household houses because they have a natural security blanket anyway.
Of course.
But last week, the Duke was told that the review had not been carried out and instead been paused. Kicked into the long grass. Folks, it ain't happening. He hasn't got the royal armed protection, and none of this was about safety. If it was, why would Harry go to Ukraine every 10 minutes?
One woman climbed 3 mountains in 24 hours and told no one until it was already done. Another family announced a homecoming with cameras, charities, and a grave visit lined up. And by the next morning, every bit of it had vanished into thin air. Same week, same royal family, 2 completely different stories about what it actually means to show up.
On Saturday, sources close to the Sussexes accused the Home Office of willfully creating conditions that are making it nearly impossible for them to travel around Britain. Do you notice, by the way, here we go again with the victim narrative.
By the end of this video, you'll understand why a brand new poll says public trust in the British monarchy just hit its lowest point in over 3 decades, and why, paradoxically, the people who debated that exact question at one of the most liberal universities in the world walked away convinced the institution still has a future. Let's get into it. Here's how the week actually started. On a Friday evening, word went out that Prince Harry and Meghan were preparing to travel to the United Kingdom. Not a vague rumor, a fairly detailed operational outline. Archie and Lilibet, who British audiences have barely glimpsed, were reportedly set to meet their grandfather, King Charles, for what would have been a rare and emotional moment.
Harry and Meghan had announced, or it had been speculated initially, that Harry and Meghan would be returning to the UK with their children for the kickoff and the Invictus Games. And then on Friday, just a couple of days ago, so Friday, June 27th, we got an itinerary for them.
There was talk of a visit to Princess Diana's grave at Althorp, charity engagements, a possible hospital visit, the kind of itinerary that gets royal correspondents, the ones who've covered this family for 20-30 years, picking up their phones immediately. And then, within about 12 hours, large parts of it were gone. The official explanation centered on security.
Meghan was supposed to be at. You know, what sort of the plans were? They were going to go visit Diana's gravesite in Althorp, and they were going to go to a hospital together. And then on Saturday, it was, no, whoopsie daisy. We didn't get the security that we wanted. So yeah, now the kids and Meghan aren't going. But we're going to be holidaying in Europe.
Harry has been engaged in an ongoing, well-documented legal dispute with the UK government over the level of protection he and his family receive when they're in Britain, a process that's been dragging through the courts for years now. According to UK protocol, a visit like this requires advance notice, typically around 4 weeks, so the government's Security Review Committee can assess and respond. That review process isn't instant, it takes time, and the outcome isn't guaranteed to match what the person requesting it wants. So here's the uncomfortable question hanging over the whole story. If the security situation was already murky, why was an itinerary this detailed circulating in the first place? That's not really speculation, it's just sequencing. Royal watchers have pointed out that there appears to have been a real gap between when concerns about the trip's security arrangements were known internally.
And being a royal means you never see a bill. You're handed on weighted on hand and foot, right? And you have an incredibly privileged existence. You're world famous. You will never have to worry about money or a doctor's appointment or a dentist appointment or anything like that. But with that, you lose your freedom and you need armed royal protection. Well, all of that's been given up by Harry. And it's so great that the UK authorities have enforced this.
And when the public-facing plans were still being discussed as if everything was settled. That gap is where most of this week's frustration is coming from. It also doesn't help that the optics are jarring. Harry has continued traveling to places like Ukraine, an active conflict zone, for humanitarian and Invictus-related work, while citing safety concerns about visiting London, one of the most heavily monitored cities on the planet. Critics are quick to point out that other working royals, including Princess Anne, who has decades of public-facing duty under her belt, don't receive anywhere near the protection package Harry has been requesting.
It subsequently emerged that the Home Office, who are responsible for security in the UK, through its risk management committee, RAVEC, had ordered a fresh assessment of his security arrangements, but last week the Duke was told that the review had not been carried out and instead been paused, kicked into the long grass. Folks, it ain't happening. He hasn't got the royal armed protection, and none of this was about safety. If it was, why would Harry go to Ukraine every 10 minutes?
That contrast alone has kept this story trending for days, and it's worth sitting with who actually absorbed the fallout here. Veteran royal correspondents at major UK outlets ran with the original plans in good faith. These aren't tabloid bloggers, they're reporters with decades of credibility on the line. Charities that had begun preparing for visits were left adjusting on the fly. Hospitals that had quietly arranged staff schedules around a potential visit had to stand down. None of that is a small thing. When an announcement of this scale collapses this fast, real people and real organizations absorb the cost of it. There's also a longer-term cost that's easy to miss in the noise of a single news cycle. The relationship between any public figure and the press they rely on for coverage runs on a basic currency: trust. Journalists need to know that when an office sends out details, those details are reasonably solid. When that trust takes repeated hits, and this isn't the first time plans tied to this particular couple have shifted dramatically at the last minute.
They were getting information from Harry and Meghan's team. And yes, obviously, sometimes you question things, but if they're telling you, hey, we're going to be at X location, like that should be pretty simple. Like, this is not complex. This is not a weird conspiracy, or it shouldn't be. This is not even manipulation, guys, because this is just so idiotic. They're not Machiavellian figures. Harry and Meghan are stupid.
The coverage that follows tends to get sharper, more skeptical, and a lot less forgiving. You can already see it in the tone of commentary this week. It's not just this trip didn't happen, it's why does this keep happening? And then there's the part of the story that barely made headlines at all. The veterans connected to the Invictus Games, the organization Harry founded and has spent years championing publicly. Several of them had reportedly been told to expect some form of contact or recognition tied to this visit. When the trip collapsed, that contact apparently never came. For an organization built specifically around supporting wounded and injured service members, that's the kind of detail that quietly undercuts the broader message, regardless of what caused the cancellation in the first place.
Meghan's belief that it almost feels like they're trying to blackmail the royal family at all times to get what they want, whereas they're saying everything is fine. I am pretty sure the security arrangements that would be in place would be perfectly acceptable. But why, this is where I think a lot of people struggle to understand, why does he think that, you know, we are going to leave him exposed, which no one wants that to happen.
Step back from the headlines for a second, because there's a bigger picture forming here. 2027 marks the 30th anniversary of Princess Diana's death, a milestone that's already generating enormous media and documentary interest. Anyone with a public brand built partly around the Diana legacy has an obvious incentive to be part of that conversation in a meaningful, visible way. A visit to Althorp with the children present would have been an emotionally powerful moment, exactly the kind of material that resonates far beyond a single news cycle. At the same time, Harry's long-running legal case against a major UK publisher is reportedly nearing a resolution, and there's been chatter that the outcome may not be the win his team was hoping for. It's not unreasonable to imagine that a warm, family-centered story landing in the same window as a difficult legal verdict would be useful timing, intentional or not.
If, may God forbid, something happens to Harry, the H-bomb, my husband, I like the flour sprinkles and my disgusting fruit spread, which is full of incredible, disgusting little mold now, you see. You can actually use my fruit spread as an antibiotic because that's how much penicillin is growing inside my apricot spread. My husband! And the lavender towels go in the refrigerator. And the flour sprinkles, which Mark Dolan says are toxic, hallucinogenic, and people aren't supposed to eat flowers. My husband! Didn't you know I'm not Meghan Markle anymore? I'm Meghan Sussex.
Royal commentary shows have floated this theory repeatedly this week, and it's the kind of detail that, true or not, is going to keep getting raised until there's more transparency about how the trip was planned in the first place. What's harder to dispute is this: King Charles, by every account, genuinely wants more time with his grandchildren. He's dealt with a serious health diagnosis over the past couple of years, and the limited contact he's had with Archie and Lilibet has been a quiet, persistent sadness for him, according to people close to the family. Whatever the politics or PR strategy swirling around this visit, he's arguably the one person in this story who isn't playing an angle.
Why would you do this? Why would these two imbeciles do this? Because they just ticked off every single freaking journalist that they gave information to. Because you don't go and say something like, definitively, we're going to the UK, if you don't know if the security you delusionally think you need is going to be there. If the government says no, which it should have, by the way, you don't say anything until you're sure.
It's also worth noting how unusual this pattern has become. This isn't the first high-profile UK visit tied to Harry and Meghan that's shifted, shrunk, or fallen apart at the last minute since they stepped back from royal duties in 2020. Each time it happens, the explanation offered is slightly different. Security, scheduling, family circumstances, but the end result tends to look similar. A story that generates significant attention on the way in and significantly less clarity on the way out. At some point, that pattern itself becomes part of the story, independent of whatever the specific reason was this time around.
Harry and Meghan, they were just manipulating and hoping to blackmail the palace into giving them what they wanted. I mean, again, I guess we're all smarter than Meghan Markle, because I don't think anybody in their right mind would have any thought that that would actually be a possibility. You would have to be exceptionally dumb to think that. And that's, again, the only thing I can use to describe Harry and Meghan here. What the heck? And again, they announced something. This is not just speculation, guys. They literally gave a somewhat itinerary.
There's a broader tension here too, one that goes beyond this particular family. Public life, especially royal public life, runs on a kind of implicit contract. Visibility in exchange for accountability. The public gets access, engagements, appearances, glimpses of family life, and in return, institutions and individuals accept a level of scrutiny that comes with that visibility. When plans are announced and then quietly scaled back without much explanation, it tends to erode that contract a little further each time, regardless of who's at fault. None of this means the security concerns aren't real. Threat assessments are serious, and nobody benefits from treating a genuine safety issue as a PR stunt. But the lack of clear, consistent communication around what changed and when is exactly the kind of gap that lets speculation fill in the blanks. And that speculation, fair or not, has real consequences for how the public perceives the people involved.
And I think that what it's going to be is unofficial. So it's King Charles. Oh, you see, I'm King Charles, you see, and I'm going to speak to the police officers, and I'm going to say, look, chaps, I'll be quite honest with you, Harry has not earned the right for armed royal protection. But what we'll do is, unofficially, can you keep an eye on them, make sure they don't come to any harm, you see, just like my geraniums. Can you protect the geraniums and the daffodils, you see, and the rhododendron? I'd like you to protect Harry, Archie, Lily, Meghan, geranium, daffodil, and rhododendron, you see. So I think they'll effectively get the protection, and I think what's also happening is that Harry and Meghan are making a lot of noise about this.
While all of that chaos was unfolding, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, was doing something that had nothing to do with headlines and everything to do with quiet follow-through. Roughly a year ago, Catherine sat in front of a camera and told the world she had cancer. It was one of the most raw, unguarded moments the monarchy has produced in recent memory. No spin, no polish, just a young mother being honest about something terrifying. She stepped back from public life for months to focus on treatment and protecting her children from the spotlight. This past week, that same woman completed the National Three Peaks Challenge, climbing Ben Nevis in Scotland, Scafell Pike in England, and Snowdon in Wales, all within 24 hours. For context, this is widely considered one of the more grueling endurance challenges in the UK, regularly attempted by trained hikers and military veterans, let alone someone roughly a year removed from cancer treatment.
Catherine, the Princess of Wales, that has just been announced, has completed the Three Peaks Challenge for the Royal Marsden Cancer Charity. And when you think about Catherine and compare it, again, to the stupidity we are going to go over, I just feel like Catherine is just an example of how royals can do it really, really well.
There was no advance itinerary leaked to the press, no press pool waiting at the base of each mountain. She did it for the Royal Marsden, the cancer charity that played a central role in her own treatment, and the first most people heard of it was after she'd already finished. When she came down from Snowdon, exhausted and visibly emotional, her family was simply there waiting. William, their 3 children, her parents, her brother. No press release announcing the reunion, no cameras invited in, just a family quietly at the bottom of a mountain. In a short statement afterward, she spoke about how recovery from something like cancer isn't only physical, that healing also means learning to stay present through difficult terrain.
So she completed the challenge, which involves scaling Ben Nevis, Scafell Pike, and Snowdon within 24 hours over the weekend. She is photographed beaming in the fog at the top of Ben Nevis in Scotland Saturday evening. She undertook the challenge alone, although she was supported by the mountain rescue, and was greeted at the base of Snowdon on Sunday evening by Prince William, their 3 children, her parents, Carol and Michael Middleton, and brother James.
Literal and otherwise. It's hard not to notice the contrast between that kind of quiet follow-through and a week defined by a canceled itinerary and a security dispute playing out in public. What makes Catherine's challenge resonate the way it has isn't just the physical achievement, though that alone is significant. It's the complete absence of a media strategy around it. There was no pre-announcement designed to build anticipation, no exclusive access offered to a single outlet in exchange for favorable coverage, no carefully staged photo opportunities planned in advance. The images that did eventually circulate, Catherine reaching the summit of Snowdon, drenched and smiling through visible exhaustion, clearly weren't taken with a media rollout in mind. They read as genuine, partly because there was no obvious commercial or reputational angle behind them. That distinction matters more than it might seem at first glance. In an era where so much of public life, royal or otherwise, is filtered through carefully managed announcements, sponsorship considerations, and timed releases, an act that happens quietly and is only confirmed after the fact carries a different kind of weight. It reads less like content and more like simply doing the thing.
And it says here she wanted to use this opportunity to raise awareness about the deeper impact of serious illness and the importance of holistic healthcare. She says, cancer doesn't just affect the body. It changes how you think and feel and profoundly affects every aspect of life. I know this personally, and that the journey through and beyond treatment requires more than medicine alone. I have taken on the National 3 Peaks Challenge not simply as a physical endeavor, but as a chance to explore life beyond diagnosis and to give something back. The Royal Marsden is a place that holds great meaning for me and those whose care and expertise are life-changing for so many people.
It's also worth remembering the broader context of what Catherine has been navigating over the past 2 years. Beyond her own diagnosis and treatment, she's also had to manage an extraordinary amount of public speculation, online conspiracy theories, and intrusive commentary about her health and whereabouts during a period when she explicitly asked for privacy. The fact that she's chosen in the aftermath of all that to re-enter public life through a physically demanding charity challenge rather than a carefully stage-managed media moment says something about how she's chosen to define her return. Here's where it gets genuinely interesting, because the story isn't just about personalities, it's about where public opinion on the monarchy as an institution is actually heading. A recent Ipsos poll put support for the British monarchy at its lowest level in over 3 decades, with just over half of the British public expressing support, down sharply from roughly 80% during the 2012 Diamond Jubilee era. The drop is especially steep among 18 to 34-year-olds, where support has fallen from the mid-70s a decade ago to roughly a third today. That's not a small shift, that's a generational one.
This is a picture from her earlier this year as well. Together we can stand alongside everyone navigating life with cancer, ensuring no one faces this disease feeling unseen or unsupported. Please know you are not alone. So this is absolutely magnificent. It's great. It's lovely.
But here's the twist almost nobody expected. A few weeks ago, the Oxford Union, one of the most famous, historically left-leaning debating societies in the world, packed with exactly the demographic the polling suggests should be skeptical of monarchy, hosted a formal debate on the motion that the monarchy effectively died with Queen Elizabeth II. The pro-monarchy side was expected to lose badly. They won, convincingly. What that suggests is something worth sitting with. When you strip away the noise, the documentaries, the leaked itineraries, itineraries, the endless cycle of security disputes, and PR maneuvering, there's still a real argument for the institution itself that resonates, even with audiences predisposed to be unconvinced. The crisis in public opinion isn't really about monarchy as a concept, it's about trust in how individual members of that institution conduct themselves. And that's really the through line for this entire week. One royal built a story around an itinerary that fell apart in 12 hours, with charities, journalists, and hospitals left to clean up the mess. Another quietly summited 3 mountains in a day for a cancer charity and didn't tell anyone until she was already back down.
Meghan was reportedly going to be at some of those things.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have probably seen the children. Where would they have stayed? Obviously, there's been reports, and it can only be these reports coming from the Sussex PR machine or somewhere that they were going to visit Diana's grave at Althorpe. So the whole thing just seems to me is they're trying to control the PR narrative here. And this, I think, is the problem for the royal family. Everything with Harry and Meghan becomes a soap opera.
It's worth sitting with what the Oxford Union result actually implies, because it cuts against the narrative that the monarchy's struggles are simply generational or ideological. If the institution itself were the core problem, that debate should have been an easy win for the Republican side, especially in a room full of politically engaged young people who, according to every available poll, skew skeptical of inherited power and unelected privilege. Instead, the pro-monarchy argument won convincingly, which suggests something more specific. People aren't necessarily rejecting the idea of a royal family, they're reacting to specific behavior from specific individuals within it. That distinction matters enormously for how this story should actually be read. The decline in the Ipsos numbers isn't evenly distributed across every member of the family. Public approval ratings for figures like William, Catherine, and even Charles have remained comparatively stable, even as overall institutional trust has slipped. The steepest erosion in trust tends to track closely with controversies.
She chose to present herself as a very tacky Diana. And I've said all along that she doesn't have any of Diana's virtues at all. And even if she has some of her failings, Diana actually was a great lady, and Diana had many virtues, none of which Meghan has. So, I think she's doomed to failure. And if it's not, I have to tell you, I would be very disappointed that people would be so easily duped by this con woman that they would believe that she has spent millions of dollars getting herself in the mainstream media and newspapers and magazines on a daily basis.
Leaked stories and public disputes involving a much smaller subset of royal family members. In other words, the data suggests the public is drawing a real distinction between the monarchy as a constitutional institution and the conduct of the individuals representing it at any given moment. That's a more nuanced story than the headlines usually allow for, and it's one that's easy to miss if you're only tracking the dramatic, attention-grabbing moments, the canceled trips, the legal disputes, the leaked itineraries, the quieter data points, the approval ratings for individual royals, the outcome of a single debate at Oxford tell a more complicated and arguably more hopeful story about where public opinion actually stands. Two very different approaches to public life, playing out in the exact same week inside the exact same family. Whichever way you read it, the gap between the two is doing most of the talking on its own. If you want to go deeper on any part of this story, there's more breaking it all down in the videos on your screen right now. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.